John, thanks very much indeed for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Now, Coadjute, first of all, I have to ask you, where the hell's the name come from? That's the most obvious question to ask.
Well, the name means to collaborate and to work together. And you know what we've learned from our time, we sort of started looking at DLT in 2017, and we formed the business in 2018. And whilst the technology is an important part of the business model, the real key to our business model is collaboration. So that's what the name is all about, working together.
Yeah, and of course that's what the whole world of this distributed ledger technology and blockchain technologies are all about, aren't they? It's about that collaboration and about bringing multiple parties together and creating a common framework, a consensus framework. When we were having a conversation earlier, you talked about this mindset that you had to build within the company of moving from an application focused, which is kind of the old world of legacy application development, to application focused and database focused and centralized database focus towards connectivity. Was that a difficult journey to take, getting that mindset?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't start there. So we started off. I suppose I've spent 20 years in IT and digital transformation, and all of that time has been about transforming organizations, implementing applications, building applications within organizations. And you look at the internal business processes, and an application, whether it was an internal application, you'd have the front end piece where your business analysts, your product people would go out and say, right, Jeff, what are you trying to achieve from a business point of view? And then they create some wireframes or whatever, and they create the front end of the application and build the back end. And then that would allow you to do your job, finance, sales, whatever it is, more effectively. And then we moved on and we had cloud providers said, well, you don't need to do all that stuff internally, we can do it for you. Oracle and Salesforce and all these services come along, but it's the same deal. What is it you're trying to achieve, and we'll build the front end so it allows you to do the things you want to do, and then sort of wire up the back end. So that's it, kind of simply. So when we started off, our first attempt at creating a seamless end-to-end property transaction, because we're trying to speed up and make the property process simpler, faster and cheaper for all the businesses involved, but also the buyer and the seller. So when we started off, our first POC is we built a mini estate agency app, a mini broker app, a mini conveyancing legal app, a mini mortgage app. And that seemed quite reasonable, and I think that's where most
But that's understandable, because that's kind of the world that you came from. That's what you do. You build an app for each of the communities that are going to be, availing of the service.
Yeah, and that's it. And so that's what we did, and people used that in that POC and said, "Wow, this is fantastic. It's great that we can all have a shared view of this transaction." The only problem is, John, we can't implement this and we can't buy this. And it's like, wow, okay.
And what was the reason for that?
The reason for that is, there's one very well-known global real estate company that were so supportive, but they said, we can't buy that because we've just invested heavily in a CRM system for every branch in the UK. We spent millions of pounds implementing it, training everybody, and we're not going to rip that out and move to your application, because whilst it does this piece really good, all of this stuff it doesn't do.
Yeah,
so we've got two choices. We sort of move to your tiny little application, only does a bit of it, does that bit really well, or we ask our agents to use this one and then swivel chair and use that one, and that's just never going to happen. So it was like, great idea.
But this is purity, isn't it? Because blockchain, the promise of blockchain has always been, distributed ledger technologies has always been about providing that connectivity. It's about the little tokens, going between peers in the relationship, to create added value, to create value for the participants in the chain. So the fact that you defocused on the application development and the functionality that, of course, was missing, therefore predicating the need for more collaboration really around the business processes, is a very elegant journey towards reaping the benefits of blockchain per se, isn't it?
It didn't feel elegant at the time, but yeah, it's you run into a roadblock, and to be fair, at that point we thought, is this just, it's not possible. You can do a pilot, but it's not possible to go to market and go into production with a DLT network, because you would need all of these applications and mass adoption. So we then started working with the software providers, and it was just game changing for us. It was like, what these software vendors want, who've been in that vertical for 15 years. And what you find is in all software verticals, it doesn't really matter whether it's a state agency, broking, and the same will be true in other industries. They're highly consolidated now. The best SaaS platforms have grabbed the market, and typically in these markets, 5 or 6 leading providers. But that's when you look vertically. But horizontally, the applications don't talk to each other. And I think that's the golden opportunity for DLT.
Yeah, but there was a few years ago, there was a variety of different players who were active in that kind of plumbing space of IBM with M series, for example. They were saying, well, we're going to become the ultimate integration partner. If you've got all these disparate applications, we can connect them all together and then create a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. But of course, it never really worked that way. It only really worked when you were connecting applications within the enterprise, but not outside of the enterprise. Is that the promise that your type of, I don't want to call it an application, but your type of solution delivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. You've just nailed it. We have, over the last 20 years, 10 years, connected up applications within organizations. They all talk to each other now. You don't have to, if you're in sales, phone finance or email finance and say this thing's happened. When you do the sale, it automatically goes to the finance system. So we've done that piece, and we've done obviously API integrations point to point between organizations, but the ability to create this kind of backbone for an industry where all of the applications that run within the industry can dock in, stay in sync and share information. I think that is the promise of DLT, and I think there are kind of, for me, 2 clear DLT use cases that have emerged. One is the sort of digital currency tokenization piece, and we're not dealing with that at the moment. And then there's the workflow application synchronization piece. Over time, these will converge, that you will have the workflow, be that around shipping or real estate or supply chain, whatever it might be, with the financial piece included, and you'll have the financial pieces that will start to have the workflow. But we're very much in the workflow, connecting up the applications that run the marketplace and providing a really low cost integration solution for the application providers and their customers.
Now, how did you choose residential property as the chosen use case? Have you a background, or your team got a background in residential property? So how did that come about, where you said, oh, I have an idea, I think this could be the perfect application, in terms of use case for blockchain technology?
Yeah, well the team now have a background in mortgages and residential property. We had a new CEO join us on the 1st of May from NatWest, and so he was the head of home buying and mortgage innovation there. But that's not where we started off. We started off as a technology team, myself and the 2 founders. We're very much from a technology background. We were looking at distributed ledger, and we were looking at how we could apply it to government. This concept of, let's take any interaction with government is never seamless. So if you move home, you've got to let the tax office know, you've got to let DVLA know, land registry, and we thought, wow, what about government? By the way, will never create this platform for government, this central database for government, because all of the departments, the NHS, DVLA, the civil servants want to control their own IT services, so fine. So we thought, well, could you have this digital backbone for government? So we started a research project on that in 2017. We looked at a number of different platforms. We ended up with R3, and I can talk more about that later. But then in 2018, Land Registry was the very first government department to run a public procurement to say, hey, we'd like to explore how this technology could make the home buying process simpler, faster, and cheaper.
It's the reference, the government reference I always use.
Yes, yeah. And that was it. It was just a procurement. We were a consultancy. We were looking at DLT. We were looking at the public sector, and we said, well, let's bid for this. And lots of big consultancies, the biggest in the land, bid for it, and we partnered with R3 and won. So that was the start of our journey into looking at real estate.
So it was that land registration thing that sort of hinted that there could be an opportunity in residential property.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky. We were a consultancy at the time. We won the project, and we were so lucky to work with Land Registry, and they had the Digital Street Community, which was a community of 200 businesses, conveyancers, estate agents, banks, etc., that were all working together to see how could we make the home buying process better. And we were the consultancy partner, so we were sort of working with them all, building a whole bunch of POCs. And as we went through that, Land Registry said, well, we're not going to build infrastructure. We're not going to build this backbone. That's not what we do. And nobody else was building it. So, we pivoted into a product business and said, right, no one else is building it. Let's go and get some seed funding and start the journey of building a pilot. So that's what we did.
Fascinating. And so the choice of R3, obviously, if you're looking at building this type of solution, you can partner with a number of different entities, let's call them that, because some of them aren't companies as such. They're more there are people who are kind of passionate about the use cases and the technology, and it being the next wave, the new era, if you like, of enterprise technology. But you could have gone with Ethereum, you could have gone with Hyperledger, you chose R3, but R3 very much typecast to some extent as a retail banking player as far as distributed ledger technology was concerned. What flipped you into the R3 world? Was it something about what they were trying to achieve, or something about the platform, the fabric, that made you choose them?
Yeah, it was the technology and the enterprise readiness. So firstly, we looked at public platforms, so the public Ethereum network as an example. We come from digital transformation in UK government. If you want to put Office 365 live in a government department, you need to put a rainforest of security paperwork around where the data is going to be, etc., etc. There is no chance that you could get a business case and all of the paperwork and security around putting a government health data, prison records, any of those records that we were looking at on a public platform. It just wasn't going to happen. Practically, even if you could, how would you pay for the gas? What would you buy Ethereum and hold it in someone in the the treasury?
Yeah.
It's just so there was just.
And I've heard we interviewed Invenium Capital here also in the property space, and one of the issues they've had is the wild fluctuations in the gas price essentially as well.
And when you build a business case for an application for 5 years, you've got to put your capex cost to build it and then your opex cost to run it. And you go, well, okay, if I pay today's gas price, it's X, but what how do you deal with? So that was kind of, all of that was just way too much. And also, I mean, the wild ICO papers that were just nonsense. There was a really bad reputation around a lot of those. Now I know a lot of those companies have all, they're gone bust, and the good ones remain. So that was that. So then we said it's got to be private permissioned. If I'm sharing your health record, you want to know who I'm sharing it with, not some anonymous entity, right? So it's got to be private and permissioned, but it can be open, but you just know who you're dealing with. So that really probably left Hyperledger and Corda as a sort of two main contenders. And we looked at Corda, and what we really liked about it is when you went onto the website, it was the documentation was first class. So when you try and sell enterprise solutions, you've got to be able to explain the architecture. And when you look at R3, it's built on common understood architecture components, like Java and Kotlin. It's got a firewall solution. It's got hot swap backup. It's got all of those things that you just need to get into production in the enterprise. So we like that. It's interesting. I went on their website. I sent an email to them in New York and said, "Hey guys, I know you're on financial services, but we'd be really interested in trying you in the UK public sector." And one of the founders came back to me and said, yeah, John, we recognise that we can offer more in other verticals. Let's talk. So I went into London, spent some time with them, and they've been hugely supportive ever since. So I think there was two things. There was the technology was brilliant, and the partnership has been superb. In the early days, they gave us office space. They really sort of helped us as a startup to get going, and we didn't see that in any of the other kind of ecosystems.
And it's also excellent from a US UK perspective as well. There's so much of their development team is based in London. Very much a US UK organisation in terms of how it's constituted, which is comforting as well.
Yeah.
So you decided to take this approach of providing the collaboration layer, the architecture of providing the connectivity amongst these disparate communities, namely all of the parties who transact as far as a retail property transaction is concerned. So what are the challenges now in getting them all connected?
If you'd asked me that question in February, it would have probably been a different answer. So with COVID, what's happened is we were going into February. We had sort of 5 partners lined up, and we were going to connect them up and sort of go live with a service. And then COVID struck, and I have to be honest with you. At that point, there was wow, this is going to kill our business, because everything. I kind of remember 2008, and there was at least a year where everything just froze. Nobody made any decision. It just kind of the world froze. So we were kind of worried that everybody was just going to blind panic. So it was a kind of 4-week period where people did kind of go, wow, what does this mean? And then full-on digitization mindset kicked in. So we've gone from having a relatively small number of partners who were going to go live, and we were signing up more as we went through and focusing on building the platform, to now we're just way oversubscribed. So we've got a big problem internally now that all of the software vendors in the marketplace are coming to us saying, yeah, we want in. We want to connect our software to the other software in the industry.
But quite a burden as well, I can appreciate.
Yeah, so we're now sort of just going through a change to our integration methodology. We're building a developer portal. We're going to have a sandbox, so we're going to allow the software vendors to do quite a bit of self-service, and that will accelerate their integration, and then we'll do the final piece, and we'll be live in Q1. And the exciting thing is we'll be live in Q1 with a more than a critical mass of providers. And just you think about what's the value in a software provider. You think about it, if you have a CRM system that's been working within an estate agency or a conveyancer, and you've helped them do everything they do internally faster and faster and faster and faster, and now you can say, but we can now provide you this connected version of our software, that one of your users on your system can connect to a conveyancer who's using a different piece of software, interact and transact, send secure messaging, stay in sync on a deal that's happening. So this sort of virtual shared ledger that underpins the industry just is offering great new revenue opportunities for the software providers, better functionality for their users, and speeding up the industry overall. So I think this pattern of DLT as a sort of network, as a backbone, as a connectivity layer and collaboration layer, and a very great way of sharing identity, will be an emerging pattern across a number of industries.
So what's the next stage really? Where do you go from here? Is it about resourcing up in order to deal with this deluge of inquiries and demands to get onto the backbone, or is it rounding out the solution? Is it thinking about other vertical market use cases, or where do you go from here as Coadjute?
So we're just in the process of closing out funding round. So hopefully we'll close next week. And
congratulations! It's not easy in the current.
Not in the current climate, but again, I think that the fact that we've been able to close a reasonably significant funding round within the current environment shows that people know that the world has just changed. We're never going back. We're now in a digital world, and so we're going to close the funding round. We've already started scaling the team. We've got our pilot platform, and we're hardening that, and we're going live in Q1. So it's really about everything now is about getting live in Q1. From there, we will then start to sort of deepen the connectivity in each one of the verticals over next year.
Now, there's some of the funders, some of the VCs are a bit sniffy about blockchain technologies. Tim Draper is a big advocate, and Mark Andreessen obviously as well from the Bay Area. But do you sense that there are certain VCs that just get it, that actively proselytize about the merits of the technology and about distributed applications generally?
I mean, I suppose I personally wouldn't be too hard on VCs in so much that if we take 2017 going into 18, the amount of nonsense that was out there. I mean, people saying, "Hey,
but there was a demarcation. There wasn't. There was a lot of people went the ICO route, and you probably knew it was going to be a bit dodgy if they were going ICO. But in terms of the traditionally funded blockchain plays, I think they seem to have much more solid business models, and the VCs followed that particular category.
Okay, so yeah, I think there's two types of. So what we've experienced with fundraising is you go through a sort of process. You might get a sort of warm introduction, and then you go through meeting the sort of principal, and then you go up and you meet the partners and whatnot. And clearly they have a very set methodology for assessing businesses. And blockchain-enabled businesses have a number of different things going on. At least we don't, and I think many more don't have this kind of user interface type piece. What VCs are looking for is almost it feels like they're looking for the next platform, which kind of looks and feels a little bit like Facebook for something. I don't know, Twitter and LinkedIn, and these types of applications. And when you have to explain DLT, which is really you're providing a backbone that's going to connect up all this existing, you need them to understand DLT. You need them to understand a new type of distributed business model. There's a lot of different pieces. So what we've found, and by the way, you need them to understand mortgages, and you need them to understand real estate. So certainly what we found is we started off with quite a wide funnel. And then quickly we found that, look, unless this VC already knows DLT, unless they've already invested, or at least we know that they've got some connectivity with the space, let's not waste our time, because it's a lot of education to do. Then secondly, unless they've got domain expertise, i.e. they've got some connectivity to real estate or mortgages or financial services, then don't waste time. So I suppose to answer your question, there are VCs, but you've got to, I think you're 100% right. You need to pick the ones that understand DLT and understand real estate. Otherwise, as a startup, you're going to spend an awful amount of time and money and energy and effort educating the VCs on the tech and on the business model.
Do you sense that we've kind of crossed the chasm, though, as far as DLT is concerned? People are now beginning to get it, and they're now beginning to see that there's potentially a disruptive technology opportunity? It's really interesting. So when we talk to our customers and when we talk generally about what we do as a business, if I go back to 2018, every conversation was about blockchain. Now we can have conversations. It's not mentioned. It's part of the tech stack. It's how we bring value to them. But ultimately, it's about what's the value. The value is in the connectivity, the collaboration, the transparency of the data, all those sorts of things. So I think on that basis, we definitely have, because nobody says, oh, blockchain. I mean, everyone's very relaxed about it. It's seen as another part of the tech stack. We always seem to be meeting with the CEO, the MD of the software vendors. We'll have conversations with them. They're very relaxed about the technology. We then the second conversation with the product and tech team. They all seem very comfortable with it. We then point people to the R3 website, and again, this is a technology that's been used by banks. What's there to be afraid of? So I think we've definitely, with enterprise DLT, we've moved on. It's accepted as a reliable enterprise grade technology. However,
I do think that 2021 is the year, because I know we will be live in 2021, but also there's quite a few other projects that are just getting ready to go into production. So I think we need to productionize the systems, and then if you invite me back next year, then yeah, I think then I'll be saying we are mainstream. DLT is mainstream. I think we're the confidence is now within the industry and within customers to use the technology, and now it's about large scale adoption and go live.
Brilliant. Well, listen, it's a fabulous story, and congratulations on the funding round, and thanks for getting us up to speed on Coadjute. It's a great success story, and I hope you continue to have the interest from the community that you're hoping to serve. So, John, thanks very much indeed.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.